of America, we have to ask ourselves the central question. Are we ready for our own Obama moment here? Are we ready for that? Are we approaching our own yes we can date with destiny? Are we sufficiently mobilized and prepared and committed to do what's necessary in order to write our own pages in world history? Because the next election that is going to be fought in this country is going to be fought very tightly. The margins of victory will be between 1, 3, maybe 4% on the outside. That's how much it's going to take in order to win a workable majority. And we know that our votes strategically placed in the city can make a difference. We can send them to the top house or we can send them to the doghouse. What we do with our vote will make a definite difference in terms of who eventually gets the keys to number 10. So we need to be inspired. We need to be inspired. We need to raise our game. Put simply, we want you to be revolutionary about registration. We want you to be evangelical about the election. And we want you to be determined about making democracy work for us. Are you with us on that point? Yeah. To those who say we cannot be bothered to vote, just can't be bothered, it doesn't make any difference. Well, let me just dispel a myth here. There is no such thing as not voting. Because every time a vote is not cast, it's a vote for the maintenance of the status quo. Are you with me on that point? It's a vote, so if you're not voting, you're voting for the maintenance of racism and discrimination against our people. If you're not voting, you're voting for failing schools in your area. If you're not voting, you're voting for stop and search to be continued at the same and increased level. If you're not voting, you're voting that the African and Caribbean continents are kept in debt to this country. If you're not voting, you're deciding that Haiti will never get the long-term help it needs to build a sustainable future. That's what no voting means. There is no such thing as not voting. You really got to be a chump not to vote because it's so ultimately self-defeating. Not only does it spit in the face of people like Dr. King and others who died for our right to vote, not only does it dance on the graves of Harriet Tubman and Rosa Parks, it fails to recognise that our vote is an instrument of a free man's power, free person's power in a democratic society. Fails to realise that coming together that we can be an irrevocable and unstoppable force if we use our votes in the right way. So I say non-voting is a fundamental betrayal of our historic struggle for equality in this country. We didn't die for the right to vote to then have the juvenile luxury of then deciding not to use it. Are you with me on that point? Yeah. Let me say, I'm coming up and winding up. Sit back down, Carl. You think you did your things? You didn't get the memo. Bringing the boat into the harbour now. Oh, no. I'm bringing it into the harbour. It's very good. And there's a lot that we should be voting on. There's a lot that we should be voting on. When you think about our parents who came here from the West Indies and the Caribbean and Africa, they came here in order to make a better life for their children, right? And they made sure that they beat down racism so we didn't have to suffer what they suffered. Are you with me? Yes. We could be the new generation that bequeath to our children lesser opportunities than those that were bequeathed to us by our parents. Are we going to introduce and give a new world to our children when racism and discrimination is going to be worse than when we arrived in as adults in this world? That's why it's our historic responsibility to get this show on the road. And let me face, the issues that we're facing in United Kingdom being black. From the day you're born, you're disadvantaged if you're black in this country. Why? Because our infant mortality rates are higher than everybody else's. If you're Pakistani, if you're African, if you're Caribbean, the infant mortality rate for us is extraordinarily high. So from the day a black Briton is born, he is fighting, she is fighting for survival at that very point of conception. And when you look at the recent recession, we've seen black youth unemployment jump from a pre-recession level of 35% to 48% in 18 months. That's black youth. The majority of our youths are now unemployed as a consequence of this recession. Now we we know what happens when unemployment comes to town with our young people. We've got to use this election to send a message to the parties out there that they have got to do much more in tackling these things. And we have more black men in jail than university and a serious problem of violence amongst our young people. We have increasing levels of teenage pregnancies and babies without fathers. And we have an increasingly difficult task ahead of us in terms of delivering racism. I'm coming, don't worry, don't rush me. You see, the thing is that we can't win in this country because there are kind of double standards everywhere you go, right? If we have a job, it's to fill quotas. If we don't have a job, it's because we're benefit scroungers. Those in work are first to be sacked and last to be promoted. We're underrepresented in Parliament and we're overrepresented in prison and psychiatric wards. If we complain, we're militants playing a race card. If we don't complain, it's because there isn't a problem and we're all complaining about nothing anyway. When we demand equality, we're really asking about special treatment, and if we wear a headscarf, then we're a terrorist or we're oppressed. If our friends are all black, then we're self-segregating, and if we move into a white neighbourhood, we're spoiling the area. The reality of racism. Now, as crazy as things are here, at least we have an opportunity to do something about it by getting involved in terms of registration and so on. So I'd like to say to you, leave you this challenge today, let us step up and be that Joshua of our generation. Let's get there. Because today, if you woke up this morning with more health and illness, you're more blessed than the millions of people who will not make it through this week. If you've never experienced the horrifying danger of war, falsely imprisonment, agony of torture, or pangs of starvation, you're ahead of 20 million people around the world. If you attend a church or a mosque without fear of harassment, arrest, torture, or death, you're more blessed than 3 billion people in the world. If you have food in your fridge, and clothes on your back, a roof over your head, and a place to sleep, you're richer than 75% of the world. If you have money in the bank, a little change in your wallet, you're in the top 8% of the world's wealthy. If you can read the literature that we provided you tonight, you're more blessed than 2 billion people in this world who cannot read. So let's be thankful for what we've got. Let's organise ourselves so that we can reach down into the mire of racism and oppression and pull up our sisters from Haiti, from here in the inner cities, up to join us and enjoy a bright new future. In order to do that, you must believe, you must organise, you must agitate, you must educate, and most of all, you must register to vote. Thank you very much.